Buenas tardes, bienvenidos una vez más, directo, Invertir como Profesional Draco TV. Hoy toca entrevista. Estaba ya programada desde hace más de un mes, creo recordar. Ya sabéis que con una frecuencia más o menos mensual, esa es mi idea, pues trato de traer algún CEO o bien de alguna compañía que tengamos en cartera en Draco Global. Acordaros que, pues aparte también soy gestor de Draco Global, o bien alguna compañía que conozcamos o que pueda ser interesante para analizar. Por tanto, en esta ocasión, pues hemos traído a Eric Stenfors, que es el CEO de Hansa AB, antigua Hansa Holding, que cambió de nombre. Por tanto, mientras se conecta, pues si queréis, vamos comentando otras cosas. Mercado interesante hoy, se ha confirmado ese escenario de recesión que ya venía anticipando el indicador de la Fed de Atlanta, que anticipaba una caída al menos 1.7, pues la verdad que al final se ha confirmado. Veremos cómo evoluciona la economía ahora. Es una incógnita, la verdad que no se sabe cómo va a evolucionar, pero en todo caso, pues tenemos una oportunidad, tenemos un CEO ahora, en breve, al cual le podemos preguntar pues cómo está viendo, viendo o espera los próximos trimestres, ¿no? ¿Qué evolución espera por parte de sus clientes en la compañía? Por tanto, bueno, espero que os guste la entrevista. Eric se va a conectar en torno a las 8:05, 8:10. Por tanto, espero que todo vaya bien, no haya ningún problema técnico. La compañía, si no la conocéis, yo he hablado de la compañía en algún momento, en algunos directos, pero me parece una compañía muy interesante, poco conocida y que yo la defino como una compañía que está en el negocio correcto y en el momento correcto, ¿no? Y esto es importante. Por tanto, pues vamos a ver qué tal va la entrevista. No sé si alguien me puede confirmar que el audio y el vídeo es correcto, ¿vale? En principio que yo creo que funciona todo bien. Y pues vamos a esperar que se conecte Eric. Sabéis que podéis hacer preguntas en el chat, ¿vale? Probablemente las guardemos para el final, pero evidentemente en inglés, la entrevista es en inglés, por tanto, por favor, agradezco preguntas que las hagáis en inglés o bien las hacéis en español y yo las traduciré. Por tanto, también, bueno, simplemente pues comentar, esta semana no ha habido directo para comentar un poco mercado, lo haremos probablemente la próxima semana. Por tanto, espero bueno, que se vaya conectando gente. Vale, mientras esperamos, no sé si alguno quiere comentar cualquier cosa, alguna empresa que esté analizando, algo que esté analizando el mercado. Sabéis que por el chat, la gracia de este canal es que como no somos muchos, pues podemos comentar cosas interesantes. Por tanto, dejar vuestros comentarios en el chat o bien en los comentarios después al final del vídeo, pero tenéis la oportunidad de preguntarle directamente al CEO de una compañía pues todo aquello que queráis. De una compañía que es bastante interesante, por tanto yo creo que es el momento de preparar preguntas. Vale, mientras tanto, el martes, acordaros, presenté el nuevo curso de Drago Global. Si queréis, mientras esperamos a Eric, ¿vale? Este nuevo curso, ¿de qué consta? Pues viene a complementar el curso avanzado, que está ya por la tercera edición, que empezará en octubre de este año. Hay bastante gente ya apuntada en la prelista sigue abierta, por tanto, si alguien tiene interés en matricularse, la matrícula se abre el 4 de agosto, pues que contacte conmigo para que la apunte en la prelista, importante, ¿vale? Porque hay plazas limitadas y la prelista está bastante, no está llena, pero hay ya bastante gente apuntada. Este es el curso presencial. Después tenéis un curso con vídeos grabados, que es uno de los bloques que se da dentro del curso avanzado. Y este es el nuevo curso que presenté el martes, del cual ya hay gente que pues, se ha matriculado al curso. Actualmente hay un descuento del 15% por lanzamiento que estará vigente hasta el 15 de agosto. Es decir, después del 15 de agosto, este curso de cómo entender y analizar un 10K en profundidad, pues subirá el precio porque desaparecerá el descuento. Y lo que me motivó a realizar este curso es que al final me di cuenta que no había ningún curso en profundidad, en detalle, que te enseñara cómo analizar un 10K más allá de simplemente leer pues, los componentes de un 10K. Por tanto, este curso, que está dividido en 3 bloques, una introducción más principiante, más básico, y después el análisis en profundidad de todo el 10K, más la detección de contabilidad agresiva y red flags, que eso se ve leyendo la información financiera y sobre todo las notas a la memoria y también el texto del CEO. Después también os enseño cómo analizar en detalle el modelo de negocio. Por tanto, hay 3 bloques principales, 9 bloques, más de 18 horas de vídeo, más de 60 clases de vídeo grabadas. Repito, tenéis la matrícula abierta, está en la web de Draco Global, tenéis toda la información en la descripción de este vídeo también. En el canal también tenéis un acceso que pone cursos disponibles. Por tanto, aquí tenéis 2 opciones, una formación presencial de 1 mes y medio que requiere dedicación, pero donde se ven muchas cosas, o bien para el que le interese únicamente pues tratar de entender un formulario, un informe 10K, que es la base de un inversor en acciones de medio plazo, largo plazo, con visión fundamental, no puede no entender un 10K. Por tanto, ante esa falta de oferta en enseñar qué es un 10K, pues me animé a hacer ese curso. No sé si alguno tiene alguna pregunta, ya sabéis que me podéis contactar, aquí tenéis toda la información, me podéis contactar por WhatsApp, por correo electrónico, curso@dracoglobal.es, o bien a través del sitio web de Draco Global, dracoglobal.es/cursos disponibles. Estoy abierto a subir o a crear más cursos, también un poco a demanda de los suscriptores del canal. Estos 2 cursos, tanto el curso avanzado como el entender y analizar un 10K en detalle, salen porque los propios suscriptores del canal de YouTube me piden crear un curso más avanzado de los cursos habituales que uno puede encontrar. Por tanto, si hay demanda para cualquier otro tipo de curso o bloque, ya veo a Eric que se conecta, pues lo vamos a pensar. Voy a dar paso a Eric. Eric, hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you very well.
Okay, thank you. Where are you right now?
I'm in my boat.
In your boat? Wow.
Yes. It's evening, so I have to do some work, but the office is very mobile.
This is my second step. So I used to play windsurfing and kite surfing, so I like sailing, but I don't have boat. So I'm working maybe to have a boat maybe later. Yeah. Okay. So first, thank you to be here. I think this is a good opportunity for me and also for you, because I think Hansa Holding is a small company right now, but I discovered your company, I think at the end of 2017 when you are a micro cap, right? Mm-hmm. So right now you are a small cap, but I think it would be interesting to present Hansa Holding to Spanish investors and also to Latin American investors, because this channel you can find people from Spain and Latin American.
Yes.
Eric, if you want, I think about these 3 different blocks for this interview. The first one maybe could be who is Eric Stenfors before Note and Hansa. So yes, you can talk a little bit about your experience before these 2 places.
Okay.
Then second block, I like to talk about construction manufacturing business, because before to join and create Hansa, you are the CEO of Note. So I think this experience could be really important for the people. And then we can talk about Hansa, about the business, the outlook, and the competitive environment. So this is how I think we can organize the interview. So if you want to spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes, are you want talking about who is Eric Stenfors before Note and Hansa?
Okay, my pleasure. Just to check, is the sound okay? Can you hear me well?
It's perfect, Eric.
Okay, good, very good. So I was born and raised outside Stockholm in Sweden. And I have a master's degrees in science, technical physics. And I was first working with developing, or first, even when I was in school, I started a company, a software company for developing operating system in assembly and C++. And then after school, when I had my master's degree, I continued to be a R&D manager. So I was developing handheld computers. And after that, I went from product development. So at that point, I was head of an R&D department. Then I went from development to manufacturing. So that's another side of the coin. And then I started a company named Note. So it was an electronics producer. That was back in 98, 99. And I was CEO of that company until I left in 2006. And then in 2008, I started this company, HANZA. And I've been the CEO since then. And so we are turning 14 years, 6th of August, actually.
Could you explain a little bit, Eric, why to get out of Note and think to create HANZA?
Yeah. So Note was just a pure electronics producer. So we did electronics board, but the contract manufacturer like HANZA. This is let's say, a bit sad story because we went public, did an IPO, and then we get in some more new owners. And there was some, let's say, hard discussions between the owners who should control the company. And that was also reflected in the board. So there was a lot of discussions, and not so much about the business, but rather taking control of the company. So I decided, and I also at the same time had the pleasure to have 3 daughters in 3 years. So I decided to take a break and left the company. And then a couple of years later, the situation was even worse in Note. And then I decided to start this company, HANZA. But I have to say that today it's working really well. Note had a very many hard years with different kind of hostile takeovers and these things. But today they have industrial owners, and they're doing excellent. So today it's a really, really nice company.
So we could see like shareholder disagreement, right?
Yes, again?
So we can say that there are shareholder disagreements, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the things I brought to this company, that's really important to have a good shareholder group.
Okay. I think last month I was reading about Note and about the results and how they think about their company. Maybe later we can share some things here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So could you explain why contract manufacturing is a business to follow and could be an interesting business right now? I understand that at the end of the 90s, people start to finding ways to outsource the manufacturing process to other companies. And then right now, and maybe in the last 5 years, many companies are going out from Asia. So they are this globalization, no? Or I think you use the word back sourcing, is it right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Could you explain a little bit how this movement works and when it starts and where it is right now?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I think in the 90s, this outsourcing took place. It started really. We can look at the telecom company Ericsson in Sweden. You know Ericsson company? They had their own factories. So when I was young, there were factories everywhere in Sweden. And then they decided that the manufacturing is not the core expertise. So they started to outsource. And then in the zeros, like every other company, there came the globalization. And then you started to look for alternatives far away to lower the cost. You wanted to have a lower price for each part. And then you went to Eastern Europe, you went to China and Asia. And then in let's say the 10th, so the second decade, then people started to realize that, okay, I moved a lot of my manufacturing to Asia. It became a really complex global supply chain. And if I look at the total cost of ownership, it's not even cheaper. It's just very complicated. Then people started to move back manufacturing for cost reasons and for flexibility reasons. And then later on came the pandemic, and they showed something else, that a global supply chain is quite fragile. So meaning that if you have a stop somewhere, everything stops. Then the product owning company started to look for more robust supply chains. And then came the latest thing, this horrible invasion of Ukraine. And then also companies started to think, where should I have my manufacturing for political reason? That's a new thing, a new dimension in this. But everything leads to a change of the manufacturing landscape. So 20 years ago, a lot of manufacturing went to Asia. There was an overcapacity, and that also led to a downgrade of contract manufacturing. Now it's coming back, and now it's under capacity. So therefore, manufacturing has been more the key. And I think also that product owning company has realized that the only way to have an advantage if they can bring out the products quickly, time to market, and at a fair price. So somehow manufacturing has been upgraded in the mind of CEOs.
What do you think is the most important reason? So the supply chain issues that you see today, the production cost that was really high in Asia, the payroll expenses, or all of them. So I think these are real movement, and there are not a stop to that movement, right?
I think we are starting to see a new landscape where you would like to have local manufacturing because there are so many advantages. And now when you look at the robotization and automation, and also the salaries are more even, meaning that there's not so many advantages to move out manufacturing. It's much better to have it close. So that will be the new. You will have your manufacturing close to your company.
Okay. Also, you used to talk about total cost, not just cost. So could you explain what means total cost here?
So total cost of ownership is everything included. So it's the cost of shipment back and forth. It's the supervising cost. It's the quality cost. It's the cost of new models implementation. And if you look at that, I have had customers who pay more for the shipment than for the production when you start looking at it. And then, of course, it's a smart thing to move it back.
Okay. So the first reason, because one customer could start to think to outsource the manufacturing, is cost reason, right?
Yeah.
So cost reduction is important right now, right?
Yeah, cost reduction and flexibility and environment. There's also discussion, should we really ship parts thousands of kilometers? What does that do for the environment? So like you talk about local food, people are talking about local manufacturing.
Okay. Could you talk about the competitive environment, your competitors? I know NOTE, but could you talk about the different companies? I'm so surprised because most of them are from the Nordics. I don't know the reason. I don't know if you know, because most of the companies in this kind of business are from Nordics. There are an explanation for that?
I think that we have a very small market, very small country. So there's always been companies in Sweden trying to move out to find new ways. And when this manufacturing opportunity came, I think a number of companies in Sweden started to see this as an opportunity and they went out. So could be that.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit about your competitors, about the difference? And you know very well NOTE, so you can. I think NOTE is a clear competitor, but NOTE is 95% of revenue from electronic manufacturing, and your company that we discuss later has more different segments or businesses, right? But could you talk a little bit? Who are your competitors and how you compete against them?
Actually, we haven't lost any customers. We don't have any natural competitors. Because what we have done is combine different kind of manufacturing technologies. And that means that if you come to us, for instance, we do recycling machines. So if you go to the supermarket and you put in some bottles, and then we do the whole machine. So we do the sheet metal mechanics, we do the electronics, we do the cable harnesses, we do the assembly. So it's really hard to find another solution. So the only competitor we really have is the customer. Sometimes the customer would like to have their own manufacturing, and that's the only competitor we have today.
So right now you cannot find any competitor that is going to offer different business in your clusters, in your manufacturing business. So NOTE is working in electronic manufacturing, and the other competitor is working in maybe one or two. So the HANZA is the only company that is working in 6 or 7 different business.
Yes. So it means that, for instance, we can have a customer from NOTE coming to us because they want to have a more complete offer, but we cannot see the other way. They will never go to NOTE because then you have to go to NOTE and a number of other suppliers. So if you go away from HANZA, you have to replace us with maybe 6, 7 different kind of contract manufacturers, NOTE plus 5 more.
Just a question about your work in NOTE. So when you was working in NOTE, you said that 90% of the business was electronic. Why not at that time try to diversify to other business?
Yeah, probably if I would have stayed as a CEO, probably I would have done that. When I started Note, it was all about trying to combine electronics factories in different countries, because this was the 90s, and then all factories was in Sweden, and we saw that some of the companies would like to sell in Germany, for instance, so they wanted to have manufacturing closer to that market. So it was the same idea, only that was only electronics.
Okay. So you are working with the same geographic zones, maybe with customers, but not with the business, because you are more diversified across different sectors and business. So could you talk a little bit about market size? Because as an investor, I like always to compute the total addressable market, but there are business that it's easier and there are business that it's more difficult. I think in your case, in the case of HANZA, it's not easy to try to quantify the total addressable market. You talk about the electronics market in Europe, but do you have any more than electronic markets? Have any idea about where's the potential here?
Yeah, this is a very important question, because when I was running electronics and suddenly we had a sales of, let's say, 100 million euro, then you would like to have customers between 1 and 10%. So I have to find electronics orders between 1 and 10 million euro. Where to find that? It's quite complicated. In our setup, we have more unlimited opportunities. For instance, in my boat here, I have a Silva compass. So it's a compass made from the company Silva. We are producing them. And it's just one of the articles. Then we do for the mining industry. Mining is quite big in Sweden. We have a big company named Sandvik. It's a big customer. Then we do big conveyor systems, which are 15-meter longs and they weigh 3,000 kilos. So we don't have a specific area, meaning that our market is almost infinite.
Okay. There are one question that always I like to do when I can invite CEOs here to the channel. So can you describe your business in easy words that anyone can understand?
Yes, I can. The best thing is this. Imagine that you are going to do pancakes. Then you need eggs. You need eggs, you need some milk, you need some flour, you need some ingredients. Then what if you had to go to one shop who was only selling eggs? And then you have to go to one shop who's only selling milk. And then you have to go to another shop who's only selling flour. And what if these shops were located in different locations? So you have to go to China to buy the egg. You have to go to Poland to buy the milk and so forth. This is the situation today for a product-owning company. They have contract manufacturers. They are selling one thing. It can be electronics. It can be cable harnesses. It can be sheet metal mechanics. What we are doing is selling all the ingredients, and it's close. So you can walk to us. We are your supermarket. We have all the ingredients. And if you like, we can even sell you ready pancakes. And we can even send your pancakes home to your house. So that's the difference.
So you are like a supermarket for your customers, right?
Yeah, one-stop shop.
One-stop shop. Okay, that's good. A good definition. Can you describe how the business operates? Because you have 6 different clusters that you divide about main markets, who are developed markets in Europe, who are the most profitable, and then you have other markets who are more located to Baltics and developed European countries, who has less profitability. But could you explain maybe some example about one of your clusters, how it works? Some example contract with a customer?
So it could be that you are in the middle of the situation where you have a complex supply chain. You have a product, you're selling it, and it's expanding. Now you need 1,000 units, now you need 10,000 units, and you realize that you have a complex supply chain. And you realize it's really difficult because today there are no forecasts. You maybe make it in Brazil, maybe not. You maybe make it in the United States, maybe not. So you're not really sure, do I need 1,000 units, 5,000 units, 10,000 units? And if I win the order in Brazil, then I have to call every contract manufacturer and say, I got this order, please produce. And I have to make them work at the same time. So if you are in that situation, I would say, how about coming to the warm house of HANZA? You can go to one of our supermarkets and we will have everything there close to you. And if and when you want it, you can buy it. And you can buy it, you only have to, that's our slogan, all you need is one. You only have to make one phone call, and we will do all the parts and the assembly.
Okay. The contract is 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. How long is the contract?
Endless. So we make a contract, and then it just goes on. We make the general terms, and then of course we have price updates, but it's forever, let's say. But then we get some kind of forecast, and they are between 6 months and 1 year.
6 months to 1 year, that I link it to the volume. No, I think volume here is the most important factor, right?
Yeah, it's very important.
So I was reading that in the environment that we are today, so as you are not selling something because it's the customer that's selling, you just increase the price because you trespass, no, the increase of the inflation, the cost inflation to your customer. So it's the customer that supports the increase in cost inflation, right?
Yeah, so we buy from our suppliers the raw material, so the steel and the semiconductors and the plastics that we buy, and then we do something with it. We make electronics, we make sheet metal boxes and so forth. But the raw material prices and the component prices is for the customer. So it's adjusted according to inflation.
There are a minimum or maximum where if the prices go up or lower, the customer is not going to pay for that?
No,
you can transfer all the ups and all the downs.
Everything, yes. So there is a completely open calculation, open books, and we say that I need to buy this for you, and it costs this much, and that's how it works.
Okay, and I suppose that at the end of the contract, so your company and the customer can review the agreement of the contract, not the prices, the term, and all the things. But you said before that the retention rate of your business, so you never lose any customer. So this is a good signal, right?
Yeah, and we use open books, and actually we don't have our own products. So our success is our customer success. So we must find ways of making this competitive. We would kill ourselves if we just increase the price. We have to find new solutions and good solution for our customers so they can sell more and we can produce more.
Okay. How has the business evolved for your company? Because you have a different strategic plan that I think you talk in phases, and right now you are finishing, I think, the phase 3, and you are going to start the phase 4. Can you explain from phase 1 to where we are today and the roadmap to 2025?
Yes. So when we started HANZA, it was just an idea, just a PowerPoint. We didn't have anything, but the idea was to make complete and regional manufacturing. And at that point, it was not even popular because in Sweden they said that don't start any factories, everything will go to China. So there was a big discussion. But the first phase was all about collecting different kind of contract manufacturing. So it was to make it complete. And the second phase was to create these clusters, these industrial parks, these supermarkets. And then we had to move factories because we would like them to be geographically close. So we had to move them. So phase number 2 was about creating the cluster. Now we saw after phase 2 that this is really working well. We had a good sales. Again, Sweden is a small market. And then we looked at the largest market, Germany, and we said, why don't we try to introduce HANZA in Germany? So phase number 3 is establishing HANZA in Germany. We started this in the autumn of 2019. A bit of bad luck. Half a year later came the pandemic. It was a hard lockdown in Germany. We couldn't have any customer meetings. We couldn't do anything until last summer. Last summer, they lifted the restrictions, and then we continued with the establishment in Germany. We expect to be ready by the end of this year, and that means then we have concluded phase number 3. And then we will launch phase number 4 when we will take a next expansion step. But that's not official yet what that will be.
So phase 4 expansion to which markets?
Yeah, that I cannot tell you, but we are expanding in different directions. One is geography. The other is number of technologies. We still have some technologies that we are not included, like plastics. And the third thing is capacity, because now also we see that there's so much manufacturing coming back from Asia that we need to increase the capacity. So yeah, all of this, but I can say so much that most likely we will have more clusters. And again, today we are only located in Northern Europe and China. Probably we will be in Southern Europe, probably we will be in US, so forth. But I cannot tell you when.
Okay. You can go here to Spain, for example.
Yeah.
So you talk about to open more clusters. Right now you have 6, I think, no? 6
Yes.
clusters. And also to open more businesses. So I think that diversify is good, but I don't know if too much diversified is really good. So what do you think about that? So where is the limit?
Yeah, since I started the company from scratch and I'm an old computer programmer, I thought I will make it modular. So every cluster is a module, and that makes this scalable. So we can add a new module without redoing the structure. So we can easily add a new cluster. We will still have the same reporting system, financially, the same management system, the same ERP system. So that means that it's like a franchise almost. McDonald's, you can just enter more modules. And that's, but we have to take it carefully. We are here for the long run, so we take it step by step. Now, first Germany must be finished, it must work, it must be okay, then we take next step.
Okay. One of your equity stories for your company is to converge the other markets, so the clusters from Baltics, from China, from other countries from developing Europe, try to converge the margin to main markets. Right now it's across, I think with the last numbers from first half of this year, it's across 5%, I think. Main market is 8%. So when do you think the margins, the profitability for other markets can converge with main markets?
Yeah, I will first tell you that, so when you reach a certain maturity of the cluster, it has a really good profit. So the original cluster we have in Sweden is already double digits. But then you build new clusters, and there is, of course, a cost when you build the cluster. We opened a new factory in Estonia this spring, and that cost a lot of money. But the good thing is, when we started in Sweden, it was one cluster that was 100%. Now we have 6 clusters. If you open a 7th cluster, it will still cost some money in the beginning, but it will be a smaller portion of HANZA. So it will not affect the group margin so much. But to answer your question, we have said that in third quarter this year, we should be ready with the expansion in the other markets, and then we will see a good margin. And we said that we have added Germany, that should be finished by the end of the year. So in the beginning of next year, there will be an upturn in the main markets, and after third quarter, there should be an additional upturn in the other markets.
Okay. You are not disclosing the number of employees by factory or by cluster. So no. I have the aggregate numbers, but I suppose that in the developed European countries, you have more employees than in developed, yes, European countries, you have more employees than in Germany, Sweden. Is it this one of the reasons because the margins are lower than the other markets?
It's just a matter of how old the cluster are. So the oldest cluster is Sweden, doing extremely well. Then we have Estonia was the second one, doing extremely well. And then the latest one is Germany, not doing so well yet, but it will do in the beginning of next year. So it's a matter of how old they are.
So this is the reason because NOTE in his Western European countries has a margin of 11.5%. This is the reason because NOTE start with a manufacturing business in 25, 26. Is it right?
I think that if you do only electronics, it's quite nice because if you have a new order, you can have 10, 20% going to the bottom line. But it goes the other way also. So if you lose an order or if there's a recession, then you go to red numbers. So it's traditionally a market that makes very good profit in upturn and could make losses in downturn.
Is it possible to know which one is your profitability in electronics in main markets?
We haven't disclosed that, but of course, we are. If you look at let's say like that, we have electronics in Sweden. That's our oldest cluster. then of course we have a margin which is like Note or better. Then we have a cluster in Central Europe. It's also quite old, so that also have a margin in line with Note or better. Then we have Germany, where we have just started, so there the electronics margin is lower.
Okay, because I'm so surprised about this higher margin for Note. I also am surprised because Note, when you read his annual report, they said, so the CEO and the company said that Note is the best in class, best in productivity. And I check it, it's okay. They have the biggest margins, the biggest ROIC, but they are focused in one business, and his gross margins is much lower than your margin. So this is my second question. So how do you expect your business can perform in a recession? So do you think that as you have diversified business in your portfolio, you are more prepared for a recession? Remember that today in the US, they report that the second quarter was negative. So we have two quarters negative economic growth. So we are technically in recession right now. So I know that you are not seeing any problems right now in your demand, but maybe we have to check. We have to start to think about that. So what do you think is your difference about your business and Note and your competitors against a high deceleration or recession for the economy?
Yeah, first of all, we have a higher margin than Note in our Swedish cluster. And our Swedish cluster, we have told that officially, is a third of HANZA. So if we would have stayed just with that one, we would have, you ever seen margin over 10%.
What is the reason for that?
Yeah, I can explain it very easy. So it's, if you have a factory, the challenge you have is you have to have a number of employees. And you always have too many or too few, because you have orders coming and going. What we have done in our industrial parks is that we have factories close to each other, meaning that we can help each other. I will give you an example. So when the pandemic started, in Sweden, we had well above 10% margin. Then we had a huge drop in one of our customers making equipment for stores, 0. So it was a drop of 30% of sales in Sweden. Now our margin went down from above 10% down to 7, still plus, with huge drop. And why is that? Because, for instance, in one factory we have machining, we have a CNC operator. That person also have a welding certificate. So that person can be moved to welding. And then we have somebody working in our electronics factory who also can be in the stock. So we can move around people. That means that we don't have so much surplus people. And the best thing, when the pandemic was over, the pandemic was more like the letter V. It was down and then quickly up again. Then we have saved all the people. Because the worst thing that can happen to you as a customer is that the people working with your product are fired because of recession. We could keep the people, meaning that when we went up, we could then quickly increase the volumes, and we even had some prices from our customer because we were able to quickly go up again. So the whole thing is about sharing resources in our industrial parks. And I always look at a factory, electronics factory, like a hotel in a city alone, who is not part of a big chain. You are so alone if you only have one factory. But if you have a group of factories, you can help each other.
So electronics is the most cyclical business that you have right now?
Not for us, because we can share the resources. We can still, if you do, for instance, compasses, that's manual work. You can put people there from the electronics. So that's our advantage. And that means that we have been more resistant. We are probably the only company who has been growing since we started the company. So if you look at our sales graph, we have been growing in average 17% since we started the company. If you look at any other electronics or sheet metal contract manufacturer, Note, for instance, you see they go down and then they go up. But we go up a crisis is always good for us because it makes new sales come in our direction.
Note, in the last report, they told that they has an amazing growth, but the amazing growth is single digit or high single digit right now. So I think HANZA, the organic growth is 20% or 25%, and with acquisition we're growing more. Yeah.
Sorry, if you look from 2008 when we started our company, and you look out to now, we have an average of 17%. I think Note has 0.
You are talking about compound annual growth rate from that date.
Yeah, CAGR. Yeah. So it goes down, it goes up. We are always increasing. So that was one of the reasons. Also, one of the experience I had from my previous company is that you are so connected to the recession if it goes down. So you have to have another kind of company. Again, when it went down, the customer came and say, you have to lower your price or I will move to another electronics producer. And you cannot fight against that. In our setup, that cannot really happen.
What's your feeling about when you talk with your customers right now, what they are telling you?
Everything is fine. And that's very strange. We see no recession at all. And we have customers, we are doing ventilators for the medtech. We are doing a lot for mining industry. We are doing a lot for recycling. We're doing for energy companies. We're doing for the defense company. And everybody is increasing.
And what's your explanation for that? Because when you look at the other part of the world, like the US, when you listen the conference calls and when you talk with the managements, so they are not as much as positive as they were 3-6 months before. So I'm suppose that in the next maybe 1-2 quarters in Europe, you can see more or less the same, right?
Could happen, but I also think that we have a lot of business to business. So for industry, for ABB is a big customer. Energy is something that is really focused right now. We have Siemens also doing gas turbines. I think that's really something for the future. We have Tomra making recycling machines. I think that will also handle the recession. We have Saab, the defense company, and they also have all-time high order books because of the war. So I think that it's partly because we have business to business. But having said that, of course, if there is a recession, we will also see lower sales, but we will also see new market shares.
Okay. I was reading that you have a huge order intake and a huge backlog, but you have the problem with inventories because you cannot find some materials. I think that you expect that it can improve for the second half of this year, but what is your view right now?
Yeah, it's really, really complicated. We ask our suppliers every week, and some of them see the light in the tunnel, some of them not. This year, I'm sure it will be the same, but I think next year we will see a better situation. And of course, it's also a matter of supply and demand. If we have some form of recession, it will ease up the material situation.
Okay. Could you talk a little bit your operational leverage? So, for example, in terms of cost, which part of your costs are variable and which part are fixed? I understand that salaries are fixed, but all the other is variable, right?
Yeah, again, all the material purchases is something that we put on our customers. So that's something that really don't affect us. What is really important for us is the capex. We need to do quite big investments. We have had an expansion program now. We invested over 10 million euro in machinery and equipment. And of course, that if you have capacity today, it's really positive. But what is the big thing for us is continue to expand, because we still also believe that there will be this what we call backsourcing, and then we have to have factory for that.
Okay, so in a case of a big recession, I think that you can, as you have less volumes, you have less cost linked to the volumes, right?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of capex, so you are growing organically and inorganically. So you are in this fourth phase. I suppose that you will continue to buy other companies that supplement your markets, your geographics, and also your businesses. Before talking about your outlook and the guidance, could you talk a little bit how your working capital is working? So which one is the cash conversion days, how it works?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, if you look at the working capital and split it, so first of all, is the stock. And the stock is really increasing. It's a decision we made that we are going to keep a high stock. And if you look at our numbers, you see that we have increased from 450 million SEK to 800 million SEK in our stock in 1 year. But that has been a decision because that has helped us to keep the delivery precision and also increase the profit. Then if you look at the other part, so if you look at the supplier debts, so the payables, it's really hard to negotiate with supplier now. It's not that you can say that I want 120 days. It's more cash on delivery. So it's a really tough negotiations today. But if you look at the customer side, then we work with factoring now in many places because the customer also has a challenge, so it's better for us and it doesn't cost us so much. So of these three parts of the working capital, the worst thing is actually that we have to increase the stock and we cannot use our suppliers to increase the debt to them.
So when you talk about stocks, inventories, I suppose that 90% of that is raw material, right?
It's also a lot of electronics components and other and semi-finished goods.
Okay, so you are talking about so I'm talking about your customer, right? So you think inventories for your customer?
Yeah. So what we can do is that we can have prepayments from our customers, but still we have it in the balance sheet. So it explodes our balance sheet, even though it helps our liquidity. And we don't want to sell the material to our customer to remove it from the balance sheet because it's too complicated to have separate stocks in your warehouse.
Okay. We have one question here. Is it Spanish? But I'm going to translate. Sergio Tosa is saying, what could mean the market, the German market for your company? Because Germany is a big economy. So how can impact in a positive way your company?
Germany is fantastic. It really fits our model really, really well. It has been better than expected, actually, because we have a new concept, and when we meet customers, we have to explain this, that we are something more than a contract manufacturer. But the meetings I've had in Germany has been fantastic. And in Sweden, we only are, if you take together the countries we have, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, still it's just a fraction of Germany. So it's a huge market. And we have a huge potential there. We just started.
Okay. One more. So your guidance is to grow revenue growth across the business cycle in average 10%. In terms of margins, operating margins, do you expect to be in 6% across the business cycle? So you are close. And then you expect to have a payout of 30%. These are the main lines. Do you have some long-term target in terms of revenue, like 2025 or 2026?
These are the targets that we put for phase number 3. And we also have a solidity goal for 30% in addition to the one you mentioned. All these goals are now fulfilled. So we are on 6% EBIT. We have 30% solidity. We are growing more than 10%. We have dividends, 30% of the net profit. So it means that, and again, I have to be careful here, but it could happen that in phase number 4, we will see some new financial goals also.
Okay. This 10% revenue growth, I understand, is organic and inorganic, right?
It has been 10% overall. We said 10% growth, and it's 40% in the last Q2 report.
Okay. When you talk about acquisitions, so we can expect the same size for acquisitions. Do you want to make a step higher than the last acquisition? So where is the strategy here?
So we are not buying companies to be bigger, but to be better. So every time we acquire a company, I have to be able to go to my customer, look them in the eyes and say, now is HANZA a bit better because of this acquisition? Because that I fear is not the case with traditional contract manufacturer. If an electronics company is buying another electronics company, they just get bigger. There is no advantage. So we are really careful on this, that every acquisition has to add something for our customer. We are been growing about 50-50. So if you look at our growth, it's been 50% organic and 50% by acquisition. We think that is a good model moving forward. But again, since we become a little bit larger, we can also probably do some larger acquisitions.
Okay. When people ask me about your company, I always said that this is the company that was in the right business at the right moment. Do you feel the same? Do you think this affirmation is good? Is it fair?
Today, yes, but when we started the company, everything was against us because we had the Lehman Brothers crash. We had people saying that don't have any factories in the Nordic countries, moved into Asia. But now the time has proved that was right. So today the trend is our friend. Yes, very much so.
Okay. Your cluster in China, I suppose it's only for customers in China, right?
Very good question. Yes, China is transforming from being a manufacturing country to being an end market. So if you would like to sell in China, you should also produce in China. So the difference is that it's manufacturing in China for China. Previously, everybody produced in China for Europe.
Okay. And right now the difficult question, what do you think is your main risk?
Main risk is access to people. That's the main challenge I have, because we are growing so quickly. We employ people all the time, and we get people from the acquisitions. We try to work really hard with our HR department, but it's all about the people, and we're working really hard with the ethics to have a good company culture, to have core values, and make people understand what we are doing. But this is, you have a company with 100 people, 200 people, 500 people. Now we are 2,100 people. So that's something which I have respect for growing with people.
Which one is the turnover employee for not for your company, but in general for the contract manufacturing? Is it like 10% or is it higher?
Sorry, what was that?
The turnover employee. So employees that got out of the company at the end of the year.
Yeah. So it could be 1 million SEK approximately.
Sorry?
1 million SEK approximately in turnover per employee, if that's...
No. I'm talking about employees that are going out of your company and out of other company. For example, I don't know, IT consulting companies in French, the turnover employee is really high because most of them are in the region from Paris, and there are too much competition against different companies, and the turnover employee is 20% or 25%. In your business, you are located in the Nordics. You have companies that are competitors of your company, so I could think that there are some competition, and your employees could move to your node to other companies. So this is because I'm thinking if that percentage could be 10% or higher.
We have a very low turnover of people in our company, and I think that's also a result that we have put so much energy in this. I think this is the most important thing. So we're not losing people actually, but it's hard to get new people, and especially young people. They would like to be YouTubers like this. They don't want to work with manufacturing, and that's the challenge we have, to make sure to help young people to understand that manufacturing, actually you're a computer programmer. You're not behind the machine, which is greasy and noisy. It's something new now. But that is a challenge. The bigger we get, the easier it is, and also we are offering a rotation program so that if you're an employee, you can have a chance to travel. Young people like to travel and all this, but getting new people and young people is a challenge.
Are there any incentive for your employees? For example, I remember Holland Colors that they have the insider trading from employees is for 45%. So the company is going to give all the employees shares of the company. I think this is not the case of your company, but I think this is a good way to try to motivate people, right? So do you have some incentive plan? I don't know if shares, but that can motivate people that not going out?
On the highest level, yes, we have that. It's a program that if you buy one share, you will have one share paid for the company in the top management. On the lower level, we have traditional bonus systems. So if you reach a certain amount of money, you will have a bonus. What I think is really important and what helps us is the environment. That's a very important thing for the young generation. And in our business model, we reduce number of kilometers. We even had a master thesis published this year where they explain how much the business model of HANZA helps the environment. And these things are really important for the young people. So that's something that has helped us. And other than this is this rotation program and this, that you can change your workplace and don't have to be on one place all your life.
Okay. Last week I was reading that Markel, who is an insurance company in the US, they obligate his executive to buy five times his salary in shares of the company.
Okay.
This is a good way to help the share of the company and then to motivate people, right?
Yeah. And I put all my money in shares in HANZA, so I have all my investment there.
I think you have a skin in the game because you have which percentage you have of the company? I don't remember right now.
I have 450,000 shares and we have 35.5 million shares. So yeah,
Okay, this is skin in the game.
Yeah.
Okay, do you think that the best of Hansa is coming?
Yes, of course. We just started. It was actually quite hard to convince customers about our concept in the beginning. Now it's much easier because it's, first of all, we have a size, we have a reputation, we have references, and we also have the trend of backsourcing. So future is much better than the history.
Do you have you doing any roadshow out of your from Sweden in, I don't know, in UK or Paris or Milan to visit shareholders? No.
We are quite unknown. We have not spent so much time in that area now.
But do you expect to be more open to that and travel to visit possible shareholders or not?
I think the bigger we get, that's a normal thing. Now in 2019, we moved up to the main market in Nasdaq, and that means that there are more publicity and more possibilities also. And I think also that for the future, when we become maybe much bigger, maybe twice as big, then it's more natural also to go around. You have to have a certain size also to attract investors.
Okay, and we are finishing. What are the next events or drivers that you expect for the company, for example, for this second half of the year?
So now the next thing we will do in this quarter 3, is to finalize the other market, the factories expansion in China, Czech Republic, and Poland. And then in quarter 4, we need to get the last pieces in place in Germany, so that's fixed. And when we're done all that, then we are ready for phase number 4 in the beginning of 2023.
Okay, it sounds good. So Hansa Holding was top holding of Draco Global, who is my fan. So, and I think if all continue to do this thing, I think is it guaranteed that it could be the top holding. So I don't know if there are any question in the chat. I think it's close to summer, no? In August, people disappear, go to travel. So maybe it's not the best time, but I think could be a good opportunity to present your company to Spanish people. And to Latin American. This is live, but they can record and they can view the video as they want. So if I have questions or anything, feel free to answer to the question if you want, Eric, to the same video in the comments.
Did you, by the way, see that we changed name? We are not Hansa Holding anymore. We are Hansa.
Yeah, I want to ask that. They don't remember. Why? Where is the reason?
There are many companies who has Hansa as the middle name, Lufthansa, so forth, but there's only one Hansa. So there's Hansa AB, and it's Hansa.com. So holding was actually something we had from history. We had a number of companies, and now we just purified it. It's Hansa.com.
Okay, we have a last question here from Sergio. He said that 5 years expectation, because you talk about the next 5 years. He said that is it difficult in this environment where we are in recession and we are not clarified where we go? Is it difficult to think in 5 years in advance, right?
It is very difficult. Yes, indeed. What we have to see if there is a recession. So when there was the pandemic, then that helped us to grow faster. So even if there's a recession, I think also we will have more customers. Actually, we launched the largest expansion program because of the pandemic and that kind of recession. And would there be a new recession? I guess we will launch a new expansion program. If there's no recession, that's another story. So yes, it's really hard to tell, but we will adapt accordingly.
Okay, great. I like your long-term view because sometimes I'm going to talk with managers that they only talk about the next quarter. And I like to talk with you and reading your annual report and your quarter letters, because you always talk about the next phase, the next 3 years, the next 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you too much, Eric. Just 1 hour. I think it's okay. This is the plan. So
thank you so much. Thank you for bringing me to this part of the world. Thank you so much.
Okay, and enjoy, because I'm seeing right now about your mirror behind. Yeah. You are in the harbor, right?
Yeah, in the harbor.
Okay. So thank you. Sergio says thank you to you, and we are in contact.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bueno, espero que os haya gustado la entrevista. Es verdad que no estamos en las mejores fechas para hacer entrevistas, pero bueno, las entrevistas Ya os digo que mi intención es hacerla una al mes. Creo que es el único canal que hace entrevistas a SEOs, por tanto, espero que valoréis esto. Y evidentemente, si me ayudáis pues compartiendo este contenido, tanto las entrevistas como todo lo que hacemos en este canal en vuestras redes sociales, pues me será más fácil convencer a otros SEOs para que vengan a hablar, porque como podéis ver, esto no es sencillo. Y aunque yo pueda tener cierta relación con él, pues porque evidentemente yo he hablado con él pues varias veces para hablar de la compañía, no siempre es fácil que pues accedan a venir a hacer una entrevista en directo en el canal. Pero Sergio dice, tampoco quería que dijeras esto, ¿eh? Eres el único mejor. No, no es eso, pero si me ayudáis compartiendo este contenido, pues podré tener más influencia para atraer pues a otros SEOs al canal. Estoy abierto a que me propongáis SEOs que os gustaría que trajera al canal. Evidentemente, si no he hablado nunca con ellos, será más complicado, pero todo se puede intentar. Por tanto, dejar en los comentarios del vídeo o podéis contactar conmigo por los comentarios del vídeo, a través de Twitter, mensajes, a través de WhatsApp. Hay muchas maneras, pero dejarme comentarios de a quién os gustaría que entrevistáramos. También la idea es que vosotros preguntéis. Ya sé que finales de julio, agosto no es la mejor época. Probablemente la próxima entrevista no la haremos hasta septiembre. También traemos algunos gestores. Probablemente el siguiente sea Xavi Bru. Y también me gustaría traer a Emérito. No creo que esté escuchando esto, pero bueno, sí que me gustaría entrevistarlo porque me gusta mucho su estilo. La verdad que lo hace muy bien. Lo hace en profundidad, que es lo que a mí me gusta y lo que explicamos en este canal y también en los cursos, tanto el curso avanzado como el nuevo curso. Por tanto, bueno, espero que os haya gustado esta entrevista. Aquí JR dice, lo dice en catalán, pero bueno, dice que Eric es un tío cojonudo. ¿Veis? Catalán y castellano no es tan diferente, se entiende perfectamente. Y por último, pues acordaros que tenéis ya pues activo el otro curso. Aquí Sergio dice que en méritos se apunta todo, por tanto, pues bueno, se lo voy a proponer y podemos hacer una charla más, pues un poco de su método, entrar en detalle en cómo analiza las compañías, tanto desde la parte cualitativa como cuantitativa. Y antes de despedirme, deciros que sigue abierta la prelista para el curso avanzado, acordaros. Empezará el 17 de octubre. Esa es la fecha y la matrícula probablemente se abrirá el 4 de agosto. Por tanto, el que quiera subir su nivel a la estratosfera, le invito a que se apunte al curso avanzado. No lo digo yo, sino lo mejor que podéis hacer es iros a la web y ver lo que dicen los alumnos que ya han pasado por el curso. Han pasado bastantes, pues ya hemos hecho 2 ediciones. Por tanto, si sois alumnos de otros cursos o bien tenéis unos mínimos conocimientos de contabilidad, pues este curso os va a aportar un nivel, ¿vale? Os va a mejorar el nivel y vais a hacer mejores inversiones, esa es la idea, y mejor análisis. Y después tenéis el otro curso que es grabado, es diferente, uno es presencial y el otro es grabado, pues para aquella persona pues, que quiera tratar de entender un 10K en su conjunto, que entiendo que todos los que estáis conectados seguramente leéis 10K, pero probablemente pues tengáis problemas. No sé si alguien quiere comentar por el chat exactamente qué sección del 10K le genera más problemas para entender. Son las notas a la memoria, pues el proxy statement. No sé si alguien se quiere comentar por el chat, ¿vale? Pero sí que hay partes. Yo creo que las notas a la memoria es la parte más compleja a entender de un 10K. Y para entenderlo, pues uno requiere de tener ciertos conocimientos que, si no te los han explicado, pues tienes que aprenderlos. Entonces, es importante aprender estos conocimientos y es lo que tratamos de hacer en este curso, ¿vale? Yo os invito a todos que os veáis el temario porque os va a gustar, ¿vale? Aquí tenéis el... A ver, dejarme compartir. Comparto la pantalla. Vale, aquí tenéis las diferencias entre uno y otro. El temario lo tenéis en la página web, ¿vale? En la página web tenéis ambos cursos, pero el curso de la derecha, que es el que hablamos ahora, que es el nuevo, si queréis entender bien las notas a la memoria, o sea, cómo se valora un fondo de comercio, cómo se valoran los inventarios, cómo una compañía reconoce ingresos, cómo reconoce gastos, acordaros que la contabilidad, la cuenta de resultados sigue el criterio del devengo, que no es el mismo el criterio de caja. Por tanto, una compañía puede estar reflejando un ingreso, pero eso no ha supuesto una entrada de efectivo y puede estar reflejando un gasto y eso no ha supuesto una salida de caja, ¿vale? Por tanto, la diferencia entre la cuenta de resultados y el estado de flujos de caja es el criterio del devengo. Es muy, muy importante. Pues todo esto lo explicamos en más de 60 vídeos con más de 18 horas de vídeo grabado muy en detalle y tenéis un descuento del 15% que estará hasta el 10 de agosto. Los alumnos de las otras ediciones tienen un descuento del 50%. De hecho, ya he visto que algún exalumno pues, ya se ha matriculado al curso. ¿Vale? Si hay algún exalumno conectado que le interese pues, este curso de Entender y Analizar un 10K, pues que me envíe un email y le enviaré el cupón con el 50% de descuento. Para el resto, pues hay un descuento activo por lanzamiento del 15%. Repito, este descuento va a terminar el 15 de agosto. A partir del 15 de agosto, pues pasará a ser o del 10 o del 5%, ¿vale? Está por ver. Bueno, si no hay preguntas, pues lo vamos a dejar aquí. Espero que os haya gustado la entrevista con Eric. Voy a pensar a ver quién puede ser el próximo CEO. Gestores ya me queda claro. Emérito por aquí. Xavi Bru también vendrá seguro en septiembre. La idea es un poco traer pues, lo que hago entre estrategas, analistas de sell side, CEOs y gestores, pues ir cubriendo un poco esa idea de un entrevistado al mes. Ya os digo que estoy hablando con Conor, pero me está resultando bastante complicado traerlo. Estoy buscando una fórmula en la cual pues, se pueda sentir cómodo, pero me encantaría tener a Conor Halley aquí en el canal para hacer una entrevista. Viene en formato entrevista o viene en formato clase para los alumnos del curso avanzado. Estoy viendo cómo gestionar esto. Vamos a ver si al final acepta o no acepta. Bueno, dicho esto, pues yo me despido ya, que son las 9. Nos vemos la próxima semana. Aún no tengo temática para el directo, como siempre. Dejadme en los comentarios del vídeo lo que queráis que comente. La gente me dice de que hable de cosas de actualidad y ya lo intento hacer, pues de vez en cuando hablar de la macro, pero me parece que este canal nació de otra manera y no nació para hablar de lo que están hablando todos los otros canales. Entonces trato de ofrecer o subir un contenido diferente. JR aquí propone hablar de Cisco y Eidanet. Y Eidanet nunca he mirado esta compañía, pero me han hablado que la verdad que funciona muy bien. Es verdad que no me fijo mucho en las compañías locales, aunque sea inversor de Grifols. De hecho, me tiene bastante mosqueado y estoy empezando a perder la paciencia en mi inversión en Grifols. Yo siempre me marco un tiempo máximo, que son 3 años, aunque evidentemente eso no quiere decir que no podáis hacer la inversión antes, pero sí que ya estoy llegando a ese límite en el cual quizá me tengo que plantear otras cosas, pero bueno, mientras tanto ahí seguimos. Por tanto, repito, abierto a temáticas para los vídeos. Intento hacer un poco de todo, pues entrevistas, tesis de inversión dentro del club de inversión. Estoy pensando en cuál va a ser la siguiente. La última fue Mavericks Metals, que es una compañía que gustó bastante. Me está gustando mucho las compañías de royalties, ya os aviso. He hecho una nueva incorporación en cartera que es Royalty Pharma. El mismo modelo de negocio, pero en sector farmacéutico. Podría hablar de esta compañía, me parece interesante, pero quiero indagar más en otros negocios de royalties fuera de lo que es farma y lo que es petróleo, gas natural licuado y metales preciosos. Me parece como para tener un porcentaje importante de Draco Global siempre invertido en royalties. No sé si ese porcentaje es el 15%, el 20%, el 10%, no lo sé, pero la verdad que me gusta mucho esta temática. El segmento es accesible, he hablado ya con todos los CEOs y CFOs de todas las royalties que están en cartera, ¿vale? Que son unas cuantas, pues Texas Pacific Land, Royalty Pharma, Mavericks Metals, Franco Nevada y bueno, estoy investigando más, pero me parece un segmento muy, muy interesante y sobre todo en el entorno al que vamos, porque es verdad que estamos en recesión, pero lo que hoy no se sabe aún es cuántos trimestres vamos a estar en recesión. Por tanto, encontrar un segmento de mercado que te pueda proteger más que el típico equity, pues podría funcionar. Por tanto, seguiré investigando royalties y, evidentemente, pues la otra parte de la cartera que suelen ser micro small caps con sesgo a crecimiento, no high growth, sino sesgo a crecimiento, compañías tipo Expel, Mediset, este tipo de compañías que yo creo que pues, van a aportar mucho crecimiento a medio y largo plazo. Bueno, sin más, si no lo estáis, suscribiros al canal, por favor, darle like, retuitearlo en vuestras redes sociales, dejar vuestros comentarios importantísimos para que el algoritmo de Twitter haga su magia. Importante, ayudarme a crecer este canal, compartir estas entrevistas, estos directos en vuestro Twitter, en YouTube, y así pues podremos traer aquí muchos CEOs que aportarán mucho valor. Bueno, me despido ya. Un saludo a todos y buen fin de semana a todos. Hasta luego. Adeu.